Coca-Cola Red.
You guys can start your production.
What's goody, Hot Breathiverse? Welcome back to Hot Breath, the show where you learn comedy from the pros. I am your host, comedian Joel Byers. And after interviewing over 400 comedians on this show, we are doing our first ever comedian roundtable live from Toronto in celebration of Just for Laughs Festival. The vision with this show is to start doing this in front of live audiences at comedy festivals. So if you think that's a dope idea, comment on this video with what festivals you want to see Hot Breath at, and we're going to pull up. But I am so excited for the comics and people that pulled up today. So let's introduce them one at a time, starting to my right here. Hot Breath alum, Ian Edwards. What's goody, fam?
What's up? Ian Edwards, as he said, comic. Good to be here. Second time on the podcast. And I'm just going to throw to the homie right here.
Yeah, throw it.
Ariane Thibault. I am the programming manager at Just for Laughs, but I got my big break in comedy being a producer of low-key comedy show with my friend Paul here.
Oh.
Hi. Hey, Low-Key Comedy Show. The co-created with Matt Rife during the pandemic. Also, I got my comedy special, shooting it in 2 weeks in Detroit, October 13th and 14th. It's called Detroit Player, Detroit House of Comedy, and I'm going to drop it sometime in December.
This is in 4 weeks, right?
Wait, what happened again?
No, go ahead.
What's up, y'all? I'm Eva Alexopoulos, creator of The Kickback, and this is my third time on the podcast. Third time on the podcast. Happy to be back.
So we're just gonna talk comedy. This is gonna be like we're talking a lot of good comedy game. And the first thing that was top of mind for me with having people in front of the scenes and behind the scenes here is like the current state of comedy. It's an interesting time right now. Comedy's booming bigger than ever. There's more arena acts than ever, but there's also open micers shooting crowd work clips with red cams in front of 4 people and going viral and then selling out clubs. So it's an interesting time in comedy, and a lot of you have experience that a little longer than others, but I'd be interested to hear your opinions on the current state of comedy and maybe where you think it's headed.
I'm not mad at none of it. You know what I mean? Like somebody's gonna, take the initiative to go out there and shoot some shit, and they're still gonna have to be funny or learn how to be funny at some point. So it has to balance itself out. But sometimes you can't rely on the honesty of the comedy industry to put people where they need to be. So, and with the world's changed, man, you just can't be like, old fashioned. Like you didn't wait to do this podcast. You 400 comics in. You didn't wait for somebody to give you the stamp of approval to do this. So I'm like, fuck it.
You like it?
Yeah, I'm for it.
Yeah, man, some sink or swim mentality, Like if you don't do it on your own, then you're just going to get washed. So it's like, do it on your own. It's like, yeah, if you're shooting a crowd work clip and it's funny and people are paying tickets to see you and you suck, that's okay too. You know what I'm saying? Not the book doesn't have to end so prematurely, Maybe for some people after that happens, they quit, but good.
Yeah.
This is like the last roundtable podcast you do. He goes back to an individual. No, man, but I think it's cool, man. It's fun to experiment and throw paint on the canvas, Like I never understood why paintings that just have random paint blobs are worth so much money. But then I'm starting to understand how it could be worth money, Yeah,
that's a good way. That's those abstract paintings of some of these early sets from people.
Yeah,
it's it's like when you're a director and you're making a movie, it's like you have to make a good movie the first time out. But with comedy, you could just show people the process, and then you can have a terrible clip. And then 5 years later, have a great clip and people can see the growth. So, yeah.
I always find a lot of it also has to do with ego and what you're willing to do. The world is always going to change. Marketing and business is always going to keep evolving. And I've seen a lot of the people that I know that kind of struggle with the whole posting clips thing, or I want to keep this joke a secret, or someone's going to steal it, or it's going to be retired. It's like, well, there's someone younger than you, less experienced than you, that is posting at triple the rate, and just based on the algorithm, it's getting picked up. So you can jump on the bandwagon or you cannot jump on the bandwagon. But I don't know. I kind of agree with Ian. I don't think there's an issue with it at all. I just think it's more of a you thing. If you're feeling a type of way about it, you should probably start posting. And that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, what about from the industry perspective? Because I mean, there's like a lot of young comics who may not have the time to back up a viral clip, but what's the balance for someone that like is a part of a big festival like JFL?
Well, I think to Ian's point, we're in an interesting time because, you know, there's never been more ways to put yourself on the map. But at the same time, it's really overwhelming because it feels like you're never doing enough, you know?
Yeah.
And then, like you said, someone can put up a clip and it flops and then they think, oh, I'm not a good comic, it didn't work. But they're actually like really funny and they do a great job. And then other comics are just really good at picking up the algorithm and they're also funny, but it's just like a different mindset. So for us as a festival, it's making sure that we work with people who like do have a large audience, but also we're like, hey, trust our insight. And like, we want to introduce you to some people that are really, really funny. And I still think that's super valuable. And a lot of comics, I feel like they see their clips, compare it to someone else, and then they just kind of say, oh no, like, but I think there's so much more to it. And like you said, like someone can be like a really niche kind of comedy and do really well in a festival and whatnot. So I think it's a really interesting time that we're in, but also it is a lot of pressure for comics and whatnot. So being able to work within a festival capacity, it makes space like for everybody. So I think that's
Do you think
cool.
you
Wow.
like as a what? You,
It's just amazing how her French accent just went away.
I should have saw her outside.
How the fuck did she do that?
Well, when I met her
did you
before
see
the
how
show,
she
her name was
introduced
one thing,
herself
and then on the show it was a
in the
completely different
beginning of the
name.
podcast?
Wait,
And then
how do you, because I can't say my name wrong.
Say your name?
It's Ariane. You want me to say Ariane? You want me to say croissant?
No, I'm not
and
complaining. Listen,
like,
first of all, it was a compliment. I said it's amazing. I don't know if they compliment people in Montreal.
Yeah, wherever
But
we are.
I was like, it's amazing how her French accent went away compared to how you introduce yourself. I can't do shit. So.
Yeah, I mean, she challenged me to a duel earlier.
She take off her glove and slap you with it.
Yeah.
Impressive.
thank you.
Respect.
Respect. Bruh, bruh.
See, she has a white voice as well.
Yeah,
We can all
yeah.
code switch here.
We
Ian.
all have that. What's the word for that?
In French?
Yeah, I can't even find the word in English. Yeah. Fuck it. Let's keep going.
That's so funny.
But do you guys think there's young, like, when should comics start posting? Like, is it ever too soon? Do you think they should, like, get at least, like, a few years in and get proficient? Or, like, it's just Wild West?
I mean,
whatever?
they're not going to listen anyway.
Yes.
Okay, that's true.
It's
Yeah.
like you could say any advice and people are gonna be like, nah, I'm just going to do my thing. So it's just like, you know, like I personally, like I'm at the point in my career where I don't want to put out some things unless they're like heaters, because I put out things that people did like and people have commented on and said that they really appreciate it and shared. And these are people that I respect their taste. So I'm like, cool, well, I want to put out more good stuff.
Mhm.
I'm not going to upload a Vine I did a few years ago and be like, hey, here's this video just to post. But there's also people that are about quantity and they're posting every day. And some things like not as hilarious as others, but they're like, bro, this is my canvas. It's fine. I'll throw a dud out there every now and then and it's okay. And then sometimes these duds blow up and they may not speak for their sensibilities. So it's like, you know, I think people should just post whenever they feel like it.
Yeah.
And just let the algorithm tell
Yeah.
them that it sucks.
This is what I learned from all my years of experience in comedy, that I can't call it. Like, I've given some of the best comics in comedy, some of the biggest comics, the worst advice. And if they had listened to me, if Kevin Hart had listened to me years ago, you'd have never heard of Kevin Hart. And I don't know. And I told him the opposite of exactly what he did.
You're being serious?
And I'm dead up, bro.
What'd you tell him?
Because he had a TV show. I wrote on it. He was a great, when he used to do auditions, he used to run them by me. And I was like, this guy is going to book a bunch of auditions, but he wanted to go on the road and make less money to build up his road career. And I was like, why would you want to go out of town where you could stay in town? You'll probably get on another TV show. And once you get on a TV show, you'll blow up that way. But he didn't want to do that. He went on the road. He ended up on the Shaq's All-Star Comedy Jam. And the clip that he did on that blew up, and he blew up on the road. And then he got the more TVs and movies. So it's like, you can't listen to me.
He's like, I like to not thank Ian.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, when Paul's like, just post whenever, you know, and they're not going to listen anyway, just do you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Also, like, so before I was in comedy, I worked in marketing for 10 years and I had an influencer agency. So a lot of comics like ask me, what works? What should I be posting? What should I be doing? And I think a lot of people who never tried to build a following, like agents, managers, or even bookers, will be like, just post. And if you've never done it, you have no idea what you're talking about. So it's really hard. Like, it's a full-time job. So I always tell comics, like, figure out what's the one way of doing it that feels natural to you, that doesn't feel like something you dread. So sometimes it's tweeting or Xing or whatever it's called now. But like, if you're a writer and that's how you like to do your thing and you want to post that, then that could be good. If it's more podcast clip that you're comfortable, if you're the kind of guy who wakes up and he's like, hey guys, welcome to my channel, and that makes you comfortable, but find a thing that you're comfortable doing that you feel like you can do consistently without hating your life completely and actually enjoy yourself. And that's going to be the one for you, versus always comparing yourself to what everybody else is doing. Like, I think with Loki and with yours, you figured out, okay, like, I really like filming bits of my comedy and posting, versus someone else going to be in his car every morning and say, this is my thought of the day. And that's going to be his thing, you know? So I think it's really about figuring out what you're comfortable doing and sticking to that. But it could be a lot when people are giving you the advice to post. And if they've never tried in any way to build a social media following, like, don't listen to them, I would say, you know?
Smart.
And do something that, like, to your point, if you're not somebody who is someone who holds the camera up, is like, hey, what's up? And you know in your heart that's not you, like, your audience is going to sense it as well. They're going to kind of feel it through the camera. So
Shit, post with your back to the camera.
that's what you want.
You know, just like, hey y'all, how y'all doing? You know,
Welcome
this is me again.
Welcome back.
This is
Yeah.
welcome back.
Welcome back.
To
You
back
know,
episodes.
do whatever. Let's point it at the sky. Just do whatever makes you feel comfortable. Somebody else might be able to identify with it. You know.
Yeah, or as a team, because like you and Paul have done like skits together and things. So maybe not like a solo hustle on the social media also.
Combined with somebody, collab.
Yeah.
That's the word, right?
Collab.
Yeah, collab.
Yeah.
Ian's showing his age there. He's
Yeah.
like, collab? Is
Yeah,
that
we used to
what-"
combine, baby, back in my day.
Yeah, so there is an interesting part of like developing as a comedian, but also just trying to develop a following and like trying to stay relevant and like be good at comedy, but then also this whole other side of the game. We're trying to fuse the two.
Well, like the same way somebody can blow up that way, it's also extra work. So you have to give the person who's posting credit for extra work. Like when I started, there was no social media. So you just had, if you had time, you just worked on your stand-up. Now you have to work on both, and not just work on it, like write the offstage shit that you're gonna post, edit it, shoot it, and post it, and then work on your stand-up. So some people might get upset that some people are blowing up, but they also are doing the extra work to blow up. So it's not just like this free pass online, pass everybody. It's not the VIP pass at Disneyland you're getting to get to the front of the line. You're still doing something.
Yeah, I think, especially with like how Matt Rife has blown up. I feel like some people are like, oh yeah, he's been grinding this for over 10 years. He's earned all of this. And other people are like, oh, he has a super strong jawline, and that's why he like blew up. You know?
Both things are true.
Yeah.
Both can exist. It is a nice jawline.
Yeah. Like, why waste it being a non-comic?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
You just found the right angle of the clip at one point where you both see the jawline.
But I know, Paul, you like started with him. So like, what has it been like? And he's producing your new special that you're filming in October. So like, what has it been like seeing that rise? What have you like learned from seeing that from the beginning?
Hard work pays off, really. I mean, because like for so long, and Ian knows this too. Like, Ian was doing a lot of our shows, and when we started during the pandemic, and we would sell out these shows, and I guess there was a part of us that felt like, all right, we're the only show in town, in the entertainment capital of the world.
Yeah.
No one else is doing shows, live shows, and then more shows started to like blossom from that. And people would always give us that credit, like y'all were the first ones to do a live show in LA, and it's like, when no one was doing shit, we felt like the score was 0-0 finally, because it was always like the odds were stacked against us. And it's like when everything was a clean slate, it's like it basically became a push-up contest. It's like, let's see who could do the most push-ups, and that person's going to win. And we were always like waiting for that, because like we were always behind in the race, because it was just, at least that's what it felt like in a lot of ways, where it's like a lot of the clubs didn't really show us a whole lot of love. you know, Matt and I were also producing our own shows and doing our own thing. Like we weren't like welcomed into the industry. Like people are like, Matt, your jaw.
Yeah, he didn't just get the jawline. He's been
he been had a job. He was still not booking shit.
been broke with that jawline for a minute. So
Yeah, he broke
He
with
ate
the
mad
jaw.
ramen with that jaw.
Yeah,
he didn't get a jaw job over the pandemic and just pop out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what's going to help the show?
Yeah.
Jaws are size.
That's what people should do now instead of getting a new nose. Like, why is nose jobs more popular than jaw jobs?
I don't know, but he's about to
Yeah.
start a trend.
It's about
You should sell some gua sha. Yeah, there's a lot of energy.
What's gua sha?
It's this thing or men use too, but it's like a daily exercise for
but
your
the-
face.
oh, the
It's a
roller?
roller.
Then
The
you become
jade.
snatched.
Oh,
Yeah.
it can become snatched.
That's hilarious. Comics now are all fine as hell. So where are you from? That's cool.
Right, life gua sha. That'd be so funny.
We'll be selling merch after the show. It's gonna be
Hilarious.
guasha. Yeah.
That's what
Man,
Matt
it-
Rife should be selling after the show.
But it was wild because it was just like, you know, like what I always tell Matt, I'm like, people are like, oh, this guy blew up out of nowhere. And it's like, man, he been cute. He been all the things that have the cachet that make Matt. Like it's a cocktail of things. It's funny.
Mm-hmm.
He's impeccable on his feet. He's very witty and he's attractive and he worked hard and he already had credits before. And he
Why do
dated
you sound like
celebrities.
his black girlfriend, bro?
And he did that. Yo, why am I talking like I got Ariel's nails? Yo, I used her nails. I'm like, first of all, pinky is first. I start with the smallest finger. You know, and it's like, so it's honestly, it's really cool to see because I said this in this interview we did. It feels like we were gaslit for a while,
Mm-hmm.
you know, where it was just like we were working so hard and like people would just like walk past us after shows or like when we did our first show, which is unrealistic. We sort of expected, we're like, man, HBO's about to give us a deal. We did the first attempt to do this thing. Ain't no one do this. It's like, let's wait for this check, you know, and it's just like, and then nothing happens. And then it's just like, and we were comfortable, like, we're just going to keep going until something happens. And then it happened,
Yeah.
you know?
Low key. And now it's at JFL and your show Kickback is at JFL.
Yeah, we had it this summer. It was awesome.
That's so cool.
It's weird. It's kind of like parallel universes, and Ariane was like at the center of it
That's so cool.
this entire
Oh,
time. Yeah. We met because she came to my show like 2 years ago in April.
Yeah, it was really cool because when I left Montreal, the comedy scene in Montreal wasn't. It was a rough time. Like there was a few clubs, but I don't think there were as many comedy fans, so it was hard to get fans into the shows. And basically, I went to LA and then I met Paul, and then we started producing these shows at the Comedy Store. And then I had to come back to Montreal, and then I had the opportunity to go to a Kickback, and it was in this abandoned movie theater. And how many people did you have in there? Like
500.
500. And she had like a DJ, and people were smoking.
So you
So it's like, when's a comedy going to start?
Shut down. But it was so what I love about Montreal, I often find I don't see in our Just for Laughs or touristy events and things like that, because it's so unique to our DNA that it's really hard to get it outside. And when I went to the Kickback, I was like, oh, this is what Montreal represents to me. Like the lineup was really fun.
Yeah.
Eva was such a wonderful host. Like
Thanks, man.
it was such a cool show. And it inspired me too. Like I came back and I spoke to Eva, and I came back and I was like saying, oh, this is the kind of stuff they're doing. You know, of course, he already had a beat maker, but then we kept adding things to make sure that people would like come to the show, but also like talk about it. And it was really interesting to just have these brainstorming sessions that would kind of make the shows work together. And then Eva ended up coming to, when we first booked Low Key at the Just for Laughs festival, I was a producer, and Eva opened the show. So it was like all the worlds like
that's awesome.
colliding,
Yeah.
and,
That's awesome.
and her people who love the Kickback also love Low Key. It's a very different show, but it like kind of hit the spot. So it all kind of came together. Now we're all here. So it's
Which
cool.
is kind of crazy when you think about it, because like everything that's good starts from just wanting to do something good. Like you guys wanted to build something for the community and give people a space. Montreal didn't really have an English community scene, period. We have a very strong French scene.
why is that? Just tell us about the.
I got
What's
it.
the tea?
We have very strong two cultures in our city, right? We have the French and then we have the English. And on the French side, naturally, the government is going to push a lot of the French art. So on the French scene, you can make a lot of money. There's a ton of clubs, productions.
We have our own star system in Quebec, which is really interesting, where like a lot of French Canadians only consume French Canadian content. So like
Snobs.
influencers in Quebec make more money than influencers in LA because there's like 10 of them who get all the contracts versus so many of them. And the same thing happens in comedy, where people can make a really, really good living when they're just like 1 year, 2 years into comedy. So it's really...
And the English side, like you have to have a lot of grit. You have to, if you want opportunities in English, you have to create it yourself. And my boyfriend and I at the time, it was like right before things got really messy in Canada. Like we were still allowed to wear...
with the pandemic or between you and him?
Now it's always... What kind of messy? His pastor father's watching another YouTube podcast of mine. I'm going to get in trouble again. But, you know, we were kind of like sitting around. There's a lot of open mics and there's a lot of this, but there's also kind of a weird system where it's like, if you don't do a Monday, then you're not going to get a Tuesday. And there's only 3 little clubs in the city on the English side. So we were like, what if we just meshed music and comedy together, which is Montreal is the festival city. There's a different festival every week happening there. So we just wanted to kind of create a space where people can chill, because it's hard enough to get any fandom on the English side in Montreal. Like it's hard for people to really love somebody and like freak out unless it's Drake and that's Toronto, but we don't really have that. So we wanted to kind of create something a little different where it was a vibe and you were coming for the vibe and you can kind of trust that we'd introduce you to some good people. But we never thought it would blow up the way it did. It was supposed to be like a one-off.
So you've helped several shows get involved in Just for Laughs. Like, what do you look for with a comedian or a show, or like this? How could we get this at Just for Laughs? You know, like what can a comedian do to like get more involved in like festivals in general?
Don't worry, I got this.
He's gonna bring up politics again. He's like, well, you're too white, Joel. That's the problem. We need diversity. Yeah.
Well, you know what's interesting, because we were talking about the clips earlier, and you know, I'm a big comedy fan. I've been a comedy fan for like the last 20 years. Like I'll listen to different interviews. I just like love it. But then I try to always see it from a perspective of like people who like watch comedy sometimes and like who come to the festival and kind of get in their brain. And often like my friends, I'm like, what tickets are you interested in? What do you buy? And we're talking about the clips earlier. It's interesting how the algorithm now, people don't decide with their own brain what they like. They see a lot of likes and love and they decide this is popular, therefore I like. Like, I don't think it's on purpose, but there's definitely something there in your subconscious. So I think as someone who works for the festival, my goal, and I tell my friends, I'm like, go see some other shows. Like we have the HBJFL festival that's like, we want to introduce you to something cool. And also that versus going to a stadium and seeing a show, which is cool, going to like a smaller venue that's intimate and you get to see some riffing and something, you get to experience something really unique that you won't experience elsewhere. So I'd say my focus has really been on trying to find these shows or trying to see, okay, do we need to produce shows like this? Like what I thought was so special about Low Key is that when I first got to LA, I would just go to comedy shows all the time. Like I was traveling alone for like 2 years, and I thought it was the best way that you could go somewhere and kind of be comfortable and get to know the city. And, you know, if you're always going to shows, you see a lot of the comics do the same sets often. But then you go to a show like Low Key and you get to see them in a whole different universe, you know? Okay. And even at the festival here, like Gavin Matt's a great example of a like really great writer, great set solo show. And then he comes on Low Key and we just saw a whole other side of his personality. And you just feel like you're experiencing something really special, but also making an intimate connection with that comedian. So I guess to answer your question, like I look for things that I want the fans to discover, but that also are going to do well within the festival large picture, that we have a little bit of everything. And hope that answers the question.
So something that's interesting and unique, but that can also sell tickets.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
No, exactly.
Well, yeah.
So it could be either something that's like Low Key that we utilize who already is in the city and then trying to put them in a different context. Or something that feels really special and unique that we know how we're going to sell it to people. Because of course we want them to be interested, but sometimes you have to, for instance, in Montreal, we had this show called Stamptown that after the first night, everybody came and they told everybody about it. And then it kept filling more and more every night. But the first night, no one had ever heard about it. Like no one really not that they didn't care, but they weren't like, oh, I got to go see this show. But then from the word of mouth, it really built. And that's the magic, I think, of the festival, really.
Oh, beautiful.
Man,
Yeah.
you speak show business really well. No wonder you run the festival.
Yeah.
well, you know what's funny to think about? Like the show Hot Ones.
Yeah.
It's such a unique format and it's so simple. It's like you're eating wings and you're being interviewed, and it's like part of the cachet is like as it goes on, you want to see how hot it gets, and it will keep people watching, as an example.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think that's like such a simple, cool format. So it's like I think there's more formats to be discovered, but it's like, and I think it's fine with trial and error. Like I went to one show and they were like, guess what drug they're on? And then the comic does stand up and they're like, all right, after they're said, so what do you guys think's happening? One goes like, is he drunk? They're like, yeah, he's drunk. And then they're like, all right, let's go to the next comedian.
I kind of find that really funny.
What is this?
I'm like, there's something there.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's just like, and I'm not saying like ideas are like, I wouldn't discourage it, but it's like, I think the germ of like people want to create more unique shows.
Mm-hmm.
That's happening now.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are trying to create their own unique experience where it's like incorporating comedy and insert another thing.
Yeah.
Interview, insert another thing. So it's like this hybrid style. And I think people want to see that now. And I think with the rise of the internet, people want to see like a mixture of things. It's like it's like an idea cocktail.
Yeah.
Man, I'm learning so much.
Do you guys think that might be because we're just always being targeted with content constantly, or different types of comedy shows, that now people are kind of craving novelty, and that's what's pushing people to create these different types of comedy experiences?
Well, I think, think of like back in the days, like we'd all like watch the same show at the same time. Like, who's the star now? That's Kevin Hart. He was on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think now there's a very widespread of interest. So that's why it is a little harder to, because you're trying, okay, what are people excited about? And people who are excited about like reggaeton, would they be interested in comedy? And then you try to see where that all comes together, because I think now people have such a wide span of different interests that they have. So it's like, I think that's what makes it really interesting, because now you can create some really niche shows that appeal to a small community but do extremely well within this. Like Patty Harrison, who we had at the festival this year, is like a really good example of something that's really out there. Before we'd have like, we'd call like alternative comedy. That doesn't really exist anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's really, whatever you want to be doing, but there's people that are able to create something that's very unique to them and then do really well, where I think that before it would have been a lot harder if it's not something that everybody understands,
Do you guys think it has to do something with like a sales point?
It's like a differentiator.
In terms of like when you're producing a show for the first time in a city that's as diluted as New York or LA, do you feel like with Low Key, what made you guys bring in the truck? And do you think that the truck is what really made a difference in the experience of the audience when they came in?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it was definitely a huge part of the identity of the show, because it created this like feel and vibe where it's like three people sitting on a truck having a conversation, and it's hilarious. It also has this homey feel to it. So I think that was our chicken wing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Ours was the free shot.
Yeah.
It was a free shot. And for some reason, that was enough for people to be like, that's cool. I like free shots and comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds stupid when you think of it and you just put it out. Like, I'll just buy everybody in the crowd a shot, and then everyone will take a shot together, and it'll create just like a nice icebreaker vibe. But that's ended up carrying the entire show for the past 3 years of this like ceremony where everyone cheerses, and like you'd be surprised the little things that kind of make.
Is that at the beginning of the show? Or?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I think, but it's not just the shot. I think it's the common experience,
Yeah.
Like I think now
yeah.
with social media and stuff, people want to be a part of something.
Mhm.
So that's why when you have those unique elements to something, they want to brag that they were there, that they were a part of it, more so than just like catching a comedian and then telling their friends. They want to be within the experience, I think.
Yeah. What do you guys think is so like that brings up an interesting point of like trying to create unique content, because now it's like every comedian has a comedy special. Everyone can like post it on YouTube. So like, what do you guys think is the next? And like Ian, with your special, like you did it more like a TED Talk. So you were looking to kind of play with the format as well.
Right.
So like, what do you guys think is next of like, all right, everyone can create a special now. Everyone can post crowd work clips. Like, how can comedians start to separate themselves again from just everyone can do the same thing.
Bro, if I knew that, I'd be on a G5 blowing off this interview.
With me.
I'm still opening for people.
It's just an interesting time of like, there is a lot of saturation of this.
It's
one
probably
style
going to
of
involve
content.
AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, why not?
Mm-hmm.
Even last night in the low-key audience, there was an IT person,
Oh yeah.
and we asked them, like, how's IT going? And she's like, not good. And she said, what? I said, why? And she's like people are getting laid off in IT because of AI. So
Yeah.
I have a feeling like there's a way you can use AI to generate more comedy clips and push your profile online. But I haven't figured it out yet, but somebody will.
Mm-hmm. And also with like AI, and speaking of like comedy specials, I almost feel like people are going to start doing more themed specials. It's like you're going to have like a certain topic and you're just going to hammer on this. And I think I heard there was I won't like blow up a spot, but like a comedian at the Mothership was running his new hour, and it was all based on like one topic. And it was like a very like famous comedian. So I feel like that maybe the trend is starting to be like, okay, instead of just a bunch of jokes, what is like my story? What is the arc of this one theme that I want to do? I could see it going in that way as well. So people get to know
I feel like people
you
have been
more.
doing that though. Like Eddie Izzard
True.
used to, I forgot the name of the special, but it was about like history of the world or something like that.
Mhm.
And I saw it and it was just like whatever his version of the history of the world from one point to a certain point. So, comics have done that, but you just have to pick a topic or a theme that can, if you can resonate with like a majority of people or a good niche, then you're good,
I'm curious, what do you guys think about like the crowd work specials? Do you think that people are going to keep doing that, or is that kind of what your people are talking about doing?
I don't know. I feel like
It works so
everybody
well.
it works well. I think it gets people in the door and then they fall in love with the acts a lot. Like I look at a lot of this thing from like a marketing social media brain a little bit of like, as a consumer, if I see a good riff, I don't assume like the whole show is riff, but some people really loved being ripped apart at comedy shows. They purposely go for it and they're not being rude or anything, but they really love it. And if the audience is there, like there can be just as many crowd work specials I think are great. Like I've seen people, especially in Alberta, they love to just sit down and just get roasted
Wow.
for a full hour.
And it's like you were saying in your English accent. In your perfect English accent about
Maybe she's AI.
Listen.
Oh my God.
Listen, I'm not saying she's not.
Watching him discover bilingualism is the best thing I've ever seen.
But you were talking about people like want a sense of community and want to be involved and like being involved in a clip. And that's a part of like with Matt, like I feel like some women go to the show to get his attention, first to like get his attention, but then when they see that he posts the clips and they're involved, that makes more people want to go there, get involved, get a good seat. And he's never like disrespecting them, and it's all good fun.
Yeah.
So it's like, what I've seen people go on Jerry Springer to ruin their lives. So why wouldn't you go on and be in a comedy clip
for
that creates
$500.
joy for everybody?
Well, even like roast battle, I remember years ago before the like comedy clip, Jeff would like in the beginning of the show have anyone from the audience come and line up, and he'd be like, "You're ugly, your shirt, da 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 da," and people just. It was like, I've never been so embarrassed, but this is the best time of my life. Like, it's not, that part isn't new, but I think for a while, people were scared of getting roasted because they became like a little bit more sensitive. So then they didn't want to go to comedy shows anymore. Like I have friends like, don't sit me in the front. They're going to like, they panic. And now there's like a new type of crowd work that's not like, you're not going to cry. They're just going to speak with you and do jokes. But I think crowd work maybe is just changing.
It's funny how, based on what you're saying, like the world is getting more sensitive and thick-skinned at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. How that
true.
parallels
And that's
with
a
cancel
weird thing
culture.
because you would think it would just be one way or the other, but but I guess that's how the world is. There's people that's thick-skinned, and then there's people who are sensitive and can't take a joke. But then there's always going to be the people that love a good joke on them.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Like they know what they're walking into and they do it, even if some of the views might conflict. They're like, I know I'm walking into the show. I know I'm going to be made fun of, but I'm going to have a really good time and wash it off. Opposed to sometimes they'll go to a comedy show and then just get purely shit on and they leave being like, that's not what I wanted. That's not what I was
That's not what these are free tickets. I don't know why.
They paid me to be here.
Yeah, some people will walk into a comedy show. I can't believe he made me laugh. I'm going to report this.
So it's not the stand-up poetry slam I thought it was going to be.
Ruined my sadness.
It's the
Unbelievable.
worst birthday I've ever had.
I guess that is paralleled with cancel culture and how comedians seem to be at the forefront of oh, you said a joke and it's offensive or whatever. But are you guys even seeing that in the industry as a whole? Is that even has that really even been an issue, or is that more of just headlines blown out of proportion?
I feel like everybody's at the forefront. Everybody's a target.
Mm-hmm.
In whatever field, it's just that we're comics and we can talk. So we're definitely one of the people in the target, but there's other groups and people in target of people are just waiting by the keyboard for a slip up, put so that they can get on to be the first person to call that person out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's definitely a scary thing though to think about. Even 10 years in the future, you're I better not say something stupid right now because in 10 years it's gonna bite me in the ass and somebody's gonna try to cancel me or something. It's
Well, I'm interested just to jump back on a little bit because you're about to record a special. And every comedian's giving away specials for free now. So I feel also comedians may start to sell them. I think I self-produced one 3 years ago and always sold it on my website. And that was just what I did. And now it's merch I can sell at shows and stuff. So how are you, now that you're about to film a special, how are you looking at, okay, this is what has been working, but how can I stay ahead of the wave again?
I'm going to self-release it and I'm going to put it on this app called Mint Comedy. So Mint Comedy, they're great. They stream shows live at the Cellar 3 nights a week. They also do shows at the Comedy Store. And they also offered me 100% of whatever is purchased.
wow. Oh, nice.
And it's they made that very clear that they want to support the artists, and this I think is the future, and it's they were very welcoming to me, very open to me. They really wanted me to succeed. They're also a sponsor in my special. So these are the type of people that I want to work with, and it's also I'm talking about a lot of serious subjects. I'm talking about my mom, I'm talking about my family, and I want to be able to own that. I don't want to just give it away to streaming service and they own my mom's story, so it was I had some sensitivities about that as well. So yeah, I'm just doing this self-release route, man. I think that's the future, it's if you have a large enough audience, and even if you don't, I think that's the move. I'm not blinded by I want to be with Netflix or I want to be with HBO or some of these streaming services, which, eventually if I do business with them, awesome. But for this specific special, my first one out the gate, this is what I decided to do.
So sell it instead of putting it on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it on YouTube.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm just interested to see where people are thinking of.
Is Mint a website or is it on YouTube?
Mint's a website. Mint Comedy, yeah.
Yeah, because they live streamed into movie theaters recently, I think.
Yeah,
they did a live thing from the Cellar and they streamed it into a bunch of movie theaters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're starting to so and this is created by someone who's worked very close in comedy for a while. He was manager with, he's Dave Chappelle's manager for years. Now he manages Mo Amer. Then he opened up Mint Comedy. Wow. And so, this guy is, someone I really trust and love. And they're looking after artists first,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just did a video essay on JFL and kind of tracked the story to how they got to where they are now. And with Howie Mandel taking over, a big thing I've heard him talk about is the digital footprint of JFL and staying relevant and trying to be more in the zeitgeist beyond just the few weeks the festival happens. So what are you guys trying to do as comedians are trying to figure out social media? What is the festival trying to do to kind of keep up as well?
I think the first thing we're trying to do is definitely around new faces. So obviously that's something that Just for Laughs has been doing for years, which in the comedy community, obviously everyone knows about it. It's such a big deal and people showcase all over the world to be part of new faces, but the fans didn't really know about it. So that's kind of our first step in that direction. We really want to own that online and make sure that people discover talent through this amazing project that we have. And otherwise, there's different things that we're looking at. Like, for instance, Low Key, we filmed it together in Vancouver with Just for Laughs. Like, we're trying to figure out what's the best way of going about it. But I think things are always changing, like every 10 years. And I think if you think of like how we used to watch shows on television, and then there was a while where we stopped paying for it, and then we'd just like find them. So those shows, like I always think of like How to Make It in America should have been like 6 seasons, but since we're all streaming it for free, they canceled it. And then we started getting so much content for free online, but now people are willing to pay for a streamer, for Spotify, and for this. And now I think it's going to shift again. So some people are posting their specials for free on YouTube, but then the true fans are like, no, I'm willing to pay just to see Paul's special or subscribe to his Instagram or OnlyFans or whatever platform people choose to monetize, because people do want to support. So I think it's just like about adapting to what's happening and where your community and fans live, pretty much.
Beautiful. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of community, did have a few questions posted in our Facebook group from comedians all over the world, are members in this group. And one of the questions that came up was from Michelle Van Dusen, who asked, was there a time you wanted to quit comedy, and what kept you moving forward?
Why'd you look at me?
Well, you're the oldest, so I thought the elder. Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
Bet you wouldn't say that to a woman.
Never ask her.
She's the
the
Frenchest.
oldest.
How can you ask the most Frenchest person?
You're the one with gray hair here. I don't know what.
I mean, not really.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a moment when I did kind of slow down for like 5 years, but I was writing and I was like thinking more of like getting into directing, but it was always in show business. And I knew I wasn't in love with it as much as my other friends who were doing, like living in New York City and doing 4 or 5 sets a night. But now I was just like, let me start back doing like 1 set a night and be in love with that until it grew into like the 3, 4 set a night thing again. You know what I mean? But I mean, it's just like anything else. If you're in a relationship with somebody, you might be more in love with them at one point, then another point, and then get back into it with them. And it's just, you just got to go with the vibe. You can't like force it. It just drive you crazy. It's fine. It's fine if you're not in love with it the way you were before. It just relax and it should come back. If it doesn't come back, then you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, and find the thing that you're in love with. It's all right.
I did quit.
did?
I did quit at one point. My mom was a very like heavy drug addict around the time I was 25. She was heavily addicted to.
It's one of trauma.
Mom. Oh, we're fine. We're fine. We're totally fine. No, but she had a bad back surgery in 2008 that went wrong, and then they were giving her like oxy, like it was nobody's business. So up until the age of 25, I was doing comedy and it was going great. And I was able to get to like Gotham Comedy Club. Granted, I still had to bring 10 people when I got there. Like, it wasn't, only 10. They were like, you can get 3 minutes if you bring 10 people. And I had to call all my cousins in the store. I had to be like, please pull up. But it got to a point where like comedy was going great and I was super happy. But my life at home was absolutely just, this couldn't be what life for a 25-year-old looked like. So I was like, if comedy is meant to come back to me, it will. And I went and I worked at a resort in the Dominican Republic for 4 years as their marketing manager. And I created all the content, and there was always a party and we had to party with the guests and do all that. And then COVID hit and I came back, and that job ended up being the inspiration for the kickback.
So you learned so much about marketing through doing that.
Exactly.
Comedy,
but also greeting people at the door, like one by one, because that was our job at the resort. We had to know everyone by name. We had to know their kid's name. We had to know their sign. We had to know what their favorite way their towels were pressed. And it was kind of like that customer service aspect that I think we ended up integrating into the show to kind of always make people feel seen at the base of it. But I don't think I would have ever gone there if I didn't take that step back for myself and be like, who am I as a person, not Jenny's daughter taking care of her every day or driving this grandparent to the hospital or stuff like that. So like life does happen sometimes, and it's okay to take a step back to like reflect and figure out what it is you want. So I think sometimes a break is good.
Here's another question from his comics. How's Jenny doing?
Jenny's killing it now. Jenny lives in Greece with dad. They're loving it. I miss them. Haven't seen them in a while, but she's good. She's clean. The COVID's over. We got her off of it, but she's just like living her best life in Greece now.
Dope.
It was a very nice question. Even you asking a sincere question sounded sarcastic. It was like amazing.
Wow, how dare you?
Yeah.
You get the laughs
I
when you
meant-
cut,
I meant
but
it.
Yeah.
I meant it, bro.
Jenny's thriving.
Yeah.
What about you, Paul?
I think it's like any relationship, you know,
Uh-huh.
where you feel like the turmoil and the ups and downs, and you want to kind of just like, you have moments and thoughts of like stopping, but like it was never enough to where I ever strongly considered quitting comedy. You know, like I also do acting and writing and directing, so those also keep me busy. And also it's like I just want to create stuff. And stand up, I can just leave the house, hit a mic, and do art. So there's something about the immediacy of it that I don't think I can ever let go of, because it's so I just really never considered ever stopping like that. You know, like there's frustrations obviously, and then there's moments where I'm like, man, do I suck?
Yeah.
Should I do something else?
I think that's what makes you an actual comic, though. If you ever have those questions of yourself, you're like,
Yeah, which is normal. And it's so like you're like, I mean, even the relationship that I'm in right now, like sometimes we'll have the most amazing time together, and then there's moments where you have doubt and you're like, this person annoys me so much, and then you love them again.
I feel that. I just think whatever works for you that
Yeah.
makes you the best performer you can be is what you need. I've had times where I've gotten really down on myself. Like, why am I not up 5 days a week? Like, I'm not a real comedian, but I'll have a great opportunity, or the show I produce goes well. But I don't know. I just feel like every comic kind of has that internal struggle sometimes of like self-worth, or being like, is this worth it? Especially in the first 5 years, you're like, what the fuck am I doing?
And then you book
sometimes?
something,
But you just
and then
keep,
you're like, oh, cool.
yeah, you just keep
I'm
pushing.
in.
I've
Yeah.
wondered that about you too. Is like, why is she not up 5 nights a week? You know what I'm saying? Even though I never met
This
you.
is actually an intervention. Yeah, we're all
Yeah.
here to say you got.
Thanks, guys. It's because I'm gonna go see Jenny again.
Okay, cool. And just 2 more here. The second one here is from Bobby Sutton. What is the best business advice you have gotten? It's about the comedy business. Or we all know the worst advice you've given, Ian, but is there any
I'm
best?
terrible with business. I need to get
Yeah.
better with it, to be honest. Like I just dive too much into like writing and coming up with jokes and thinking that's gonna carry me. And so you know, just
Yeah, you're like,
So-
Came from such a real place.
yeah. So yeah, man, just look at this as it's not even my observation is like you just gotta look at, just like in anything, whether it's just whatever you're doing, just trying to get an outside overall perspective of the whole thing so that you can see what the business is doing, see what you're doing, see where you are in it, and how you can expand in it the way you want.
I actually have like somewhat of a business advice, because I used to have an influencer marketing agency, and I would work with brands like Under Armour, HelloFresh, like all these different brands. And I'd approach comedians who do skits and stuff on their page and say, hey, this brand would love to work with you. And they would go, I'm not an influencer, like really brush me off, you know? And I thought that was really silly, because they'll say yes to a commercial that they didn't write, that an agency wrote, and then people will remember them as that character for the rest of their life, you know? I think there's so much power in being able to approach brands and you be able to control the narrative and tell the story. And that's something I think that sometimes comedians judge in content creators or influencers, but that they get right, because in any creative business, at the end of the day, the money comes from advertising. So if you're like, before I listened to David Spade's podcast, and he was saying, you used to write on SNL to maybe one day book a commercial. Now the commercials are like, do you want to do a commercial? And people are like, I'm too cool for this, you know? But I think that if you're able to work with brands in a way that they align well with what you're trying to do, and they're willing to let you control the narrative and the story, then that's a really good opportunity to kind of try to create for yourself. So
Nice.
She's right. I've had brands pay me not to talk about them.
To Clearly, Just for Men was one of them.
Yeah, I make a lot of money.
My
that way.
roasts aren't hitting. Every time I roast you, they take your side.
It's not that take. Listen,
Yeah, I'm just-
listen. Keep the podcast going. I gotta use the bathroom.
Oh yeah, you're good. Yeah, but we're on the last question, but yeah, Paul, what's the best business advice you've got?
Someone, I mean, this is really good advice. Actually, they said, do you know what you're selling? And I was like, yeah, I'm a comedian. And they were like, that's it? I was like, yeah, I mean, I do acting, I do stand-up, and my parents are from Iraq, and I'm this, and I'm basically like, and then it's like, oh, I didn't put any thought into this, so I like put a lot of thought into what is it that I'm selling? What is, if someone goes to see Paul Aaliyah, what is it that they're going to watch? And it's like, if you want to know what it is that I'm selling, oh, check out my Instagram, check out my website. There's all the info right there. You're gonna have my bio, you can see the work that I've done, you're gonna get an idea of the vibe that I create, you're gonna get an idea of the ideas that I have and what I want to make and what I want to do. So people now know exactly what they're buying when they buy a ticket. Whereas opposed to people buy a ticket and they don't know what they're gonna go see. They're like, oh, this show is called whatever, this X, whatever the name of the show is. And it's like, oh, and I don't even know what to expect. It's like, is it traditional lineup? Is it this? Like, how does it work? Is there a website? There's no website for it. So all the tickets are only on Eventbrite. Is there like, how are they integrating this marketing? So, and I think a lot of it is what I learned from Arion. Like Arion really helped me identify what low key really is, and like what the sort of vibe. Like I needed someone to zoom out and sort of like share that, so she did. And it gave me so much perspective. And, because before me and Matt were like, we just want to be funny. We're just being funny. We're just gonna go on stage and be like, hey, what's up?
Right.
And just do crowd work, and that's the show. But it's like, I don't really have a whole lot of business perspective, But now I do.
What did you figure out with low key? Like, what did you kind of tweak to help?
I think it's funny because one part was when I went to Eva's show, what I thought was interesting is that how warm and welcoming the space was, which low-key was as well. But whenever you'd go to a comedy store or comedy bars in general, you walk in, the bouncer's like really mean and sit there and don't talk and you better buy 2 drinks. And it was very like stressful, And when I loved about Eva's shows, it feels like I'm part of this. I don't feel insignificant, and I was like, okay, is there a way that we can bring that? So I think so. And that starts from social media. You can like start creating that. So we'd like make sure, because they have some diehard fans who've been going to all the shows. So we'd start like messaging people individually. I helped them out also with creating ads, creating brand identity, and having that conversation of like, wait, let's talk about what is special about low key and what's unique about it and focus on it. Because in the beginning, they were focused a lot on how they blew up in the pandemic. And as an audience member myself, I was like, I'm so sick of hearing about the pandemic. I want to pretend it never happened. So like, I don't brand your show about the pandemic. I think you guys created something unique and it would have worked no matter what. Of course it helped, but so then we're like, what is special about it? Oh, anybody can roll up, anything can happen. And we kind of like worked on that all together. And I think they had created it, but then from an outsider perspective, I kind of like was able to put it into words maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Real raw, off the cuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Love it. Awesome. What about you? Yeah.
Well, my first piece of advice, if you're producing, is don't quit your day job because, like for real, like I got to a point where I was like, oh, I'm just going to do the kickback and put all my time into the kickback. But I would say that if you're just starting out or if you're just starting a show, you have to have like a job somewhere to help you carry yourself. And then everything that goes into your show is then put back into your show. Because for a while, like I was having to live off my show and it was the most stressful thing I've ever done. It made me feel terrible.
Yeah.
I felt like I couldn't pay people what I wanted to pay them because I had to survive. So I do think there's a lot of other factors that you can do to kind of alleviate the stress if I'm talking about producing or whatnot, because I've found in my career that the times where I'm a little bit off or a little bit like not really present or my performances aren't the sharpest or my production of the show could have been better are the times where I'm like very financially stressed. So it's that. And also just like, what's your ethos? Like that's what Isabel had asked me 3 years ago about the kickback when we were about to get on the festival and they weren't sure. They were like, maybe we want you, maybe we don't. And I sat down with her at a restaurant and she's like, what's your ethos? And I was like, I should know it. It's a Greek word, but I don't know what you're talking about right now. And she's like, so you're what? Like, you're just someone who goes and like shakes your ass on stage and gets people all riled up for a comedy show. And I'm like, that. And, but she's like, no, like who are you guys? Like if you could sum up your show or who you are in one sentence, like an elevator pitch, that for me has been the best advice. Like we're a comedy party that merges house music and stand-up comedy together. That's it. And like that for me has kind of been a good way to get started. And also having a brand kit is really important when you're approaching sponsors and stuff like that. Just having your documents ready at any point if you are trying to build yourself for a show, like have your stats of your Instagram, be able to make anyone else's job who's looking for you easy by just having everything ready. I think that's what we learned in marketing and pitching sponsors and stuff. It's like you have your documents with your bio. Like sometimes people don't want to do that many clicks. So you can have a link tree, you can have a website, you can have all these things available with 20 links on Instagram. But if you're like a producer or a booker or someone in business, you already have a million things on your plate and you want someone who's going to approach you to make your life easier and come to you with like a proper proposal. So that's coming from the production side for me, but that's been the best advice. Just be ready and be prepared and like have your documents in order to be able to send out whenever you need.
Yeah, you're right. People are lazy, so do their work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Man.
But they are though.
Brilliant.
People
They
are
are.
late. You can't expect someone to be looking for you. Nobody is looking for you. Nobody is scouring Montreal for a little brown girl who throws a comedy party. Absolutely no one. And I do think that's something people really need to get out of their system. And it's okay if it's like an insecurity, but like I had to have that moment with myself. Like no one's looking for me. No one's like, where's the next Mindy Kaling? Like no one's looking for me. I have to put myself in front. I have to show them why this is important. And I have to show them why it's going to make money. Most importantly.
Hold up, are you Indian and Greek?
What?
Or are you just Greek?
I'm Greek and Brazilian, but people, put me in different categories, racially ambiguous. But no one's looking for the next box for me to check. I have to just be like, this is who I am. This is where I'm putting myself in front of. And yeah, that's how I feel.
Well, I mean, and I can't thank y'all enough for even taking your time to do this and take a chance to just come and sit here and talk about this.
It was hard, man.
Yeah.
Holding your pee that long, it was very difficult to.
I mean, it was a lot, I had a lot of shit to do.
Yeah. Arian had to convince Ian in English and in French.
Yeah. And so God bless her.
But yeah, I really do. I mean, I value comedians and all the work and sacrifice that goes into it. Being a comedian, but then also interviewing so many. And anytime I ask people, especially something like this, coordinating so many schedules, I really want to start leveling up this show and doing something special and really making a bigger impact on comedy beyond just like one-on-one interviews and learning comedy, but really like becoming more of a tastemaker in the industry. So I appreciate you guys really taking the time to
Thanks
do
for
this
having us
today. And if you guys want to promote what you have coming up or your shows and things, that we can just end with that.
Well, we're going to be in Vancouver November 3rd for the Kickback, and we're going to
Nice.
start our tour. So you guys can stay tuned for that.
Beautiful. Where they follow that?
On kickback.montreal on Instagram.
Perfect. Cool.
Yeah, I got October 3rd at the Comedy Store in LA. I'm running Detroit Player. And then Miami on October 5th and 6th. And then 13th and 14th of October, Detroit House of Comedy. Gonna film the special. So if you're in the Detroit area or just fly. Just fly to Detroit. Come through.
Where they follow you?
At Paula Leah Comedy. ELIA. I forgot. The most important part.
Yeah. We're talking about branding. And he's like, what?
Yeah. And then I'm like, yeah, I did, right?
Follow me, Ariane Tonka. I post my running times on Instagram. People are really into it.
Show off.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Perfect.
Follow me on Instagram, and it's probably the same on Twitter and on what's the other thing, that Threads at Ian Edwards Comic, and you see all my
I can't
comedy
keep up with
clips
Threads.
and dates. So just whatever on social media, just follow me there. I'm on YouTube too, but
Beautiful.
shit leads to shit. You go to Instagram, it'll take you to everywhere.
Perfect. Yeah. And this show is available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast apps. So go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Tell your favorite comedy friends about Hot Breath. And thank y'all for being on the show. Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much.
having us.
Yay, that's so fun.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Awesome.